Hi, this is Grant Wilson from Ghost Hunters, and you're listening to the Alternate Route Podcast.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen. It does happen. A ghostly apparition in the dark of night.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
Hey there, ponderers of the paranormal. You are in the Paranomaly Zone, the place for all things paranormal, unexplained, odd, and mysterious, and of course, all of the good times in between. We have a good one tonight as we are joined by Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International star, author, motivational speaker, and all-around good egg, Mr. Dustin Pari. Technically, this is the fourth time Dustin has joined us for some awesome paranormal banter, but the prior three were on the prior podcast, the Alternate Route Podcast, which is no more. It has ceased to be. However, you aren't here to listen to me ramble on. You're here to listen to one of your favorite stars of some of your favorite paranormal programming, Mr. Dustin Pari. Let's dive right into it.
Yeah, good to be here.
Perfect.
Just get settled in from work.
Hey, that's kind of the same as me too. It's been like a mad dash to get home and get everything set up here, and
Exactly.
And then my co-host here, Mr. Mike, he is battling a head cold, so his voice is he's like coughing every 2 seconds.
Yeah, my voice kind of comes and goes, and I've been home all day taking it easy.
Yeah. Well, that's all you can do sometimes, my friend. That's all you can do.
That's right.
Well, you know what it's like, Dustin. You've been on here
I'm good with you guys
several times.
It was nice to finally get to meet you.
Yes, Dustin. It was awesome meeting you in person at ParaUnity this past summer in Duluth. Very cool.
That was a nice convention, especially for a first year convention. They did a nice job. There's a lot of good people there. And after doing the podcast here 3 times, it was nice to actually see you and say hello in the flesh.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
I know. Yep, that's us. It's us in the flesh, in person, and I'm always impressed when you meet someone in person, and I just have to say that you are a very large man. You've got since Ghost Hunters fans have been following you for so long and stuff, and Dustin from seasons 1, the early seasons of Ghost Hunters, you've bulked up, sir. You look great.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I've these last I've always been somebody who tried to stay in shape just for health reasons, but these last 2 or 3 years I've really tried to focus more on getting a little more definition and stuff. The real reason is my daughter is now a teenager, and so I have to be intimidating to scare away these boys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was like, if I could maybe add on some muscle. So
Yeah, that'll work.
I appreciate people noticing.
I am a rather large man myself, but only in a completely different way.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to make any comments.
I have some dieting to do.
No, that's all right. We'll do our best.
Right.
This time of year is tough, man. Every time I turn around,
tough.
it's like, here's a pumpkin pie. Here's a pumpkin pie. It's like, well, I got to eat that.
That's right. Can't go
I
to
slice those
waste.
things in 4. I get that pie. I'm like, there's 4 pieces here. That's it. You just get a quarter each. And usually it's just me. So I just string it out over 4 days.
There you go.
Can of whipped cream later, and we're good.
I'm in the same boat as you too, man. As far as teenage daughter, I've got 2 of them. One of them, one's 14 and one's turning 13 tomorrow, for crying out loud, and just bang, bang. And the only problem is, even if I did bulk up and lifted a lot of weights, I'm still like only 5'7" on a good day. And so it's like, I'm going to be looking up to all these potential boyfriends, and I'm just like, I'm intimidating. I'm like Scrappy on those Looney Tunes commercials.
Yeah.
They're making them taller these days, I think. I'm pretty sure that's the way of it.
They are. Okay, I'm looking at you got a cool little setup in the background there, but obviously the first thing that pops up that I see is your Led Zeppelin shirt.
Oh yeah.
And this is just a free-for-all Patreon exclusive video episode. Don't want to bore you with kind of the lame questions that we probably asked you 100 times in the prior.
They aren't lame questions.
The prior chats with you. What is your favorite band / musician? Let's start off with something like that.
Oh, I'm an Elvis man first and foremost.
I knew it.
There you go.
Yep. Absolutely.
Always. I grew up listening to a lot of oldies music. My mom loved the Beatles. My dad loved Elvis. I have appreciation for them both. I've seen Ringo and Paul McCartney in concert.
Awesome.
Obviously, never get to see the King, but Elvis is my favorite. But I celebrate a lot of different musical styles. I listen to a lot of 40s music. I realize that I used to listen to Christmas music year round, and I still like it a lot. But I found that what I really liked were those harmonies that you get in those old Christmas carols that come out of the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that big band era, I listen to a lot of that. But yeah, I love old school rock and roll, 70s rock, classic rock, and 80s hairband rock. Like, I'm really into that.
Perfect.
I was down with hip hop until I think the last artist that like I actively listened to and supported was Lil Wayne. After Lil Wayne, there's a lot of other little somebodies, and I don't know who any of them are.
Yep.
It all sounds kind of the same. And I'm like, I actually had this thought to myself just yesterday. I was like, I've given up on new music. Like, there's nothing else for me. Now I go backwards. Like, I found this great, so like at work, the day job is oral surgery. So if I'm not in surgery, I'm in my office just processing, doing insurance, sending out letters, nonsense. And I found that listening, I like Kiss a lot. I listen to Kiss a lot, but I'm able to tell the time of how much more I have to go based on these playlists because I know the songs. And I started getting into retro 40s and 50s, like happy jazz or music to cook by, it says on YouTube. I'm like, what is this?
Perfect.
But it's just like this happy background music. And I'm like, I feel better about life listening to that.
Yeah, I love that stuff too. I really do. I always have. Growing up, I've loved it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, there's something about it. You know, Mike, it reminds me of like a time I don't think I ever got to experience, but I used to see on TV growing up, you know, watching those shows on Nick at Night, like Donna Reed and stuff. They always have like that big old timey radio in the background and like just like weird little music. There's something about that I find is very comforting, you know?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I know, Mike is a Beatles fanatic. He appreciates your appreciation of that. I grew up listening to my mom's Elvis records. She was a big Elvis fan, so I definitely know where you're coming from on that one. How can you deny the King, man? That's just
for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you mentioned Kiss too, and then in the 80s, I was an 80s kid. I was obsessed with the band. I was just like, wow. And it wasn't even, obviously they were not wearing their makeup in the 80s. Yeah. But I was fascinated by the concept that's like, okay, these people that I'm looking at right now on one of my older brother's records, they look like a regular 80s metal band, but they used to wear crazy makeup or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. And so I dive into it and learn all about them, and I was obsessed. Let's just put it, I was obsessed. So
I remember when they first, excuse me.
There's his voice.
First, when
the
they
late
first
puberty, Mike.
I know it, very, very late. I remember first seeing them when they had their makeup off at first appearing.
Yeah. And
I remember talking to friends about that, and a lot of people were saying, I think they should put their makeup back on.
Yeah,
right. but I remember that very well.
Yeah. They did a great job of reinventing themselves, staying with the times or trying to stay with the times. You know, like the androgyny period of the 80s didn't work out too well for, like Paul could pull it off, but Gene, he was just too big. He just looked weird, you know, but they always found a way to get through it. And I hear today, actually, I heard this morning on Hero Nation Radio that they're going to be releasing the Kiss cold gin alcohol here in the States. I guess they did in Europe last year.
Really?
And it went really well. So now they're going to be, I'm not a gin guy. I like rum if I do have a beverage, but you know, Gene Simmons likes to trademark and put his name and logo on everything, man.
Everything.
They're great at what they do. I mean, some of the decisions are kind of odd, but they've done well. That's for sure. You can't knock it.
You can't knock that. I think Paul sometimes rolls his eyes at Gene's marketing plans.
Yeah.
He's like, I can envision the Kiss logo right on that, Paul. And Paul's like, oh, right. Gene.
Yeah. Some nice Kiss porta potties. That's
right.
what people want.
Why not? Why not? Now, you know, we did mention that we met you in person at Para Unity. how much do you enjoy traveling and going to all these various paranormal conventions? I mean, I can imagine that someone, particularly with your positive outlook, you just absolutely have a blast meeting people such as Mike and I and just fans of the genre in general.
For sure. I love going out to do the events. I'm driving up to New York this weekend to go do another one. And I love being in front. It's so funny because, like, personally, I'm very much an introvert. Like, I like to be alone. I go to movies by myself. I spend time like out hiking by myself. I like a lot of solitude, late night walks and things like that. But I love being on stage in front of a bunch of people. Like, that's fantastic. I can tell my jokes. I can tell my motivational stories. I can give you a ghost story or two.
Sure.
And then it's nice though. You know, it's always been nice over the years. It's never lost upon me the sacrifice that people put in to come to these events. You know, there's travel, there's time. The tickets are not cheap, and it's a lot going on. And so the fact that people come and like they're like, oh, I waited outside in line to come see you. I'm like, really?
That's
Like,
awesome.
I think of like Elvis, John Lennon, and Jesus. Other than that, I don't think I'm waiting in line for anybody. So that always means a lot to me, and I never forget that. But it's always an interesting like dichotomy too. The balance of my life is I go from like, you know, rock star status on the weekends, you know, low level. I'm not the top tier, but some people seem to like me. But like I do that, and then like there's applause and autographs, and then I go back to the day job where I'm just, you know, sitting in the office punching buttons like a monkey all day. And I'm like, oh, yesterday people really liked me. Today people are yelling at me again. So when people are like, oh, you're so down to earth, I'm like, yeah, well, I never get to leave.
So I mean, it definitely keeps you level, doesn't it, man? You know,
There's got to be a balance there.
Yeah, and which is good too, you know. I mean, it's good not to fly too high, you know. It's you got to find your vibe and your groove, and there's no shame in an honest hustle, you know. Like a lot of people like run off and they can, you know, just embrace television, but when it happened for me, like I was just getting married, and then like my daughter was just born, and I was just, you know, I didn't think it was a safe gamble, and the sacrifice of the time away from them wasn't worth it. And I tried it for a little while and I just couldn't do it. I was emotionally not prepared to do that. But now I've been married 15 years and my daughter's a teenager. And so now I think people like when dad's not in the house. So like if there was an international show opportunity, now would probably be the best time for me to take it.
Very cool. Very cool. So, you know, another plus, I would imagine, for events like ParaUnity is that it's a chance for you to meet your friends, your old friends that you perhaps haven't seen, you know, from as often as you would like, you know, former members of the show. Is that a safe assumption that it's a great way to keep in touch with your buddies?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we always text each other. We live in such a noisy, loud, and fast time in this life that texts sometimes don't even get returned, you know, amongst friends. And it's a sad comment on society, but sometimes it's just the way it is. But it's nice when we do get to travel the road together because it is like catching up on old times. You know, you get some FaceTime with each other and like everyone falls back into their old ways. And, so that's always nice too. And that's why, you know, the last couple of years or so, it's been so weird not seeing everybody, you know, and you go to certain places, certain times of year, and you expect to see the certain people. And not just the people I've worked with on camera, but also, you know, friends of mine that have been supporters for years that I know when I go to this convention, they're there. You know, this family comes to this one. So that's always kind of a nice thing too. But it's, you know, I'm glad that we're able to get back out there and start doing these things. You know, Minnesota Paracon last year, this year rather, was kind of the kickoff, I think, for me personally, of getting back out there and doing events again. You know, I did virtual stuff last year like crazy. Last year was the busiest year ever. But it was mostly in this room. It was mostly standing in front of the camera. So to have the opportunity to go back out and see people and hang out with people was great. And then this year I've been able to go film a couple episodes with Ghost Hunters again. So that's been a nice nice opportunity, you know. So I'm looking forward to people seeing those things. And yeah, we'll see what continues to unfold, you know.
That's awesome. Yeah, we can't wait to watch you again on Ghost Hunters. You know, at the risk of repeating ourselves or myself, you know, from prior chats with you, Ghost Hunters is what did it for me. And I think it's safe to say
both
for
of us,
you
yeah.
too, Mike. Yeah, it was the show that just
At
absolutely
the same time, yeah.
just hooked us. And I have such fond, vivid memories of, and it sounds kind of silly when I say this every now and then, but I lived alone at the time, and there would be particular episodes of Ghost Hunters that were legitimately creepy. And some of the captures that you got, I had trouble sleeping later on, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay, shadow people peeping their heads up behind a pool table. I don't like that. I don't like that. I mean, it's such a great positive memory for me. And it just means so much to be talking to you. And I'm gonna get it out of the way right now with the risk of sounding sappy. Thank you so much, Dustin, for doing this. You're just awesome. We can't thank you enough.
You guys are very kind. I appreciate it. And the show's always been a great blessing to me and my family. And thankful to still have the opportunity to do this kind of stuff, And it's interesting though, like you're right. Like in some ways when Ghost Hunters first came out, like we brought people together. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot of these shows on. And so it was something that people could talk about and like, what is this? And like, it's like somebody will come to my table, like, just like this last weekend in Michigan. And they're like, I grew up watching you. And I'm like, oh, I really feel old inside, but I appreciate the sentiment, like I get that. So it's really cool to see, like, and even, sometimes like those awkward phases, like with teenagers and parents, the paranormal is something that everyone can kind of enjoy together, and it's not so awkward, so I get a lot of that too, where people are like, I didn't have time with my kids, but they would sit and watch Ghost Hunters with me. So that's kind of nice to be a part of. Anytime somebody opens, their hearts up and their door up to you to let you be a part of their life and share those moments, I think it's really meaningful. And so I'm thankful to have had these opportunities and to continue to still have them. So, I just keep going forward and doing what I can do. And these virtual things, the virtual lectures and interviews and stuff, it's a nice opportunity. And it was good to be back on the road this year. And I'm looking forward to doing more next year. So I actually have a meeting tonight to plan out more events for next year. So we're going to be very busy next year.
Plenty of stuff on coming then from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, sir. And I will be back in Minnesota next year too.
I can't wait. I just saw that. I think you shared it on Twitter about the first Paracon coming up in 2022. Yeah, man, it's a Mystic Lake, I think, Mike. Mystic Lake Casino. Really? We should start making plans right now. Yeah,
we should. Yeah, we need to do that.
That's it.
We need to be there.
Do you have Dustin any particular memories from Ghost Hunters, filming Ghost Hunters, that immediately just jump out to you? Like if someone asked you the cliched question that I just did.
That's okay.
Which one stick out to you when you look back?
So there's a lot of like little behind the scenes things that people don't know. So like, seeing a woman apparition from head to toe in the St. Augustine Lighthouse.
Sure.
That was amazing because for years I'd been crawling around these old buildings by myself or with one or two random people looking for this type of activity. And then to finally see it, it's like, oh my God, like it really is real. Like all those like near experiences before were actually leading towards something. So that was always a very important one. And then getting knocked down in Leap Castle, out of all the years I've investigated, only once has anything like that happened to me. But it did a lot for me in terms of how I perceive the other side and how I respect the other side, and also how I ended up respecting the people around me. So that was a great moment for me, like a moment of reckoning. But behind the scenes, there's things like the first thing I thought of when you mentioned it was the USS North Carolina, which I've done events on. It's a nice ship. It was active. We get stuff. But when we were filming on it for the first time, I had to leave early one night because I had kidney stones.
Oh, no.
And I just remember like limping down the gangplank, feeling so nauseous with this like gnawing pain in my side. I'm like, oh, this is not the way to start this career.
Ouch.
But and we had so much fun too. Like internationally, I remember driving home after a case. They used to run us from like sundown to sunup, investigating for international. And I appreciate, from a business standpoint, they want to get as much as they can out of us. But man, we were working like dogs out there, production and talent alike. And I remember driving home one morning and Barry's behind the wheel. He and I used to switch off. Everybody else would fall asleep. And we're driving, I think we're in Sweden, and the sun's coming up. And I said, Barry, I think I need to stop doing this. And he's like, Mr. P, what do you mean? So you know how many sunrises I've seen with you and how many I've seen with my wife? Like, you and I are a lot more familiar at this point in the game. And it was shortly after that, actually, I was like, yeah, maybe it is time we head back home a bit, but we had so many laughs and so many good times out there on the road together. I saw so many different things. I've been to like 26 or 27 countries, and just amazing to think, just pursuing your hobby, pursuing your dream can turn into something so much more, and then some, because then that spiraled off to all the motivational stuff, which I like to think helps some people. So, we just keep things going, man, keep giving.
Oh gosh, 100%. It's the old saying, man. If you truly love what you're doing, it's not work, and
That's
I just think that, you're one of the blessed, man, who is, you get to do what you love and you're great at it. And so it's a win-win. It's a win. Mike and I are still looking for something passionate,
I'm pretty passionate about what I do.
He is. It's
not a job to me.
No, that is very, very, very true. Yeah, Mike is. Well, go ahead, Mike. You describe what you do. Yeah.
If my voice,
if you can,
I'm a CNA. Excuse me.
Yeah.
With hospice.
Oh, okay.
And hospice is just a real passion of mine, and it's a lot of the hands-on, helping people that need help with whatever they need, and being with them until the end. And it's absolutely, it's an honor to be able to do that. It's not a job.
Right. No, that's good on you, man. That's good work right there. It just, I this year or last year, it all blurs together, but I recently started performing a lecture called Once Upon Death and Dying. And I talk about, because it's something that's fascinated me since I was in high school. I took a course my senior year, a death and dying course, learning about the different customs and different rites and rituals across the world. And then I realized that in our current situation, in our current world, in our society, death itself is something that is become like taboo. People don't like to talk about it, and they feel like if they don't talk about it, then somehow they can elude it. But I take the other approach where I kind of feel like the more we talk about it, the more we can have an understanding of it, and we can never control it. We can never have a hand on it, but we can maybe have a say in the way we go out. And so the patients that get to come to hospice, like they have a say, and there's dignity there. There's a little bit of relief from the pain.
Yeah.
And there's my uncle died in hospice a couple of years ago now, and to be able to sit there with him during those moments and to think about the time we shared together, and to hold on to his arm and to give him one last kiss, like those moments were important. And I think that a lot of times we've privatized our death. We've taken, somebody dies, you call the ambulance or whatever, or you call the coroner, and they're out of the house. And there's not that time for, for that loving intimacy that we kind of need with each other.
That's very true. It is needed.
Yeah. No, good. Yeah, that's great work, man. Good for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I keep telling Mike that, it's a job that's not for everyone. And he is more than capable of doing that because he's just a very, very loving, caring, and empathetic soul. And so I'm not saying that to suck up, Mike. That's the truth.
No, I know that. I love everybody that I meet and take care of. And it's just, like I said, it's an honor and to help with that transition in any way I can.
Say, Dustin, I know we only have a few minutes left here. I want to cram in as much as I can real quick.
Sure.
Speaking of hospice, sadly, my mom's husband passed away 2 months ago now, going on 3 months. And his last couple weeks of life, they had in-home hospice for him. There are people who are traveling to take care of him. And, he passed away very comfortably, very peacefully. And, I'm always fascinated with all things paranormal, of course, and, down the road, I start casually talking to my mom about whatever it is. And she just kind of throws out there that kind of weird things are happening in the house, after her husband is gone. Now, do you have where do you stand at like the quickness of something like someone passes over, someone transitions? Can a loved one start experiencing things immediately after that, do you think? Or where do you personally stand on that?
That's a great question. And I have personally noticed, because of the emails that I've received from people all over the world over so many years that are grieving and going through this process, as I've taken notes and looked at it, it seems to be there's like a 10 to 14 day period after someone passes away where they interact a little bit. And I think this is kind of like a loving God or goddess's way to allow for a transitional period. I never, and it's okay, like anybody watching, it's okay to have different beliefs. It's good to talk about different things and respect each other and learn from each other. I personally don't believe that any spirits are ever trapped here. I don't think a loving God or goddess would lock the door and not let you in. I think some linger more than most. I think some visit. I think a lot of times we get caught up with what we know as residual and think that's a spirit that's trapped. But I've noticed 10 to 14 days after someone passes, in that time period, they seem to visit a bit. And after 10 to 14 days, less frequently or not at all. And I think that that's a transitional period for the spirit to leave the body and to get comfortable going into the other realm. And I also think it's nice for us, the living, to be able to experience that. And things we may experience are them standing by the edge of the bed or sitting on the foot of the bed. You may notice the smell of like their cologne or perfume, or their TV or radio turn on or off, like when their favorite program would be on. These little things, they have ways of finding communication. And funny enough, harkening back to that same lecture I just mentioned, Once Upon Death and Dying, I found in Buddhism and what was the other one? I think it's Judaism. There's the same thing where they believe that there is a spiritual kind of time period before they transfer over. And so for within those 2 weeks, they're actually, it's Hinduism. It's in Hinduism. They're actually taking time to separate themselves from this world. They take all the material possessions of the person that died and they give them away to charity or friends or family. And it's a transitional period where they're helping that person let go of the material things of this realm, so they're not anchoring them here. And then on that 10th or 12th day, the widow dresses in white and they have a ceremony, and they kind of celebrate the ascension of the soul into the afterlife. I was like, and for years I've been telling people about 10 to 14 days. And then when I come across this in my study, I'm like, oh my God, this totally lines up with what I thought. That's amazing. So it's kind of a cool little thing. And it's not the same for everybody, but it's definitely something that does happen. I've only had one family member visit me. I never ask. I always figure they know what I do and they know who I am. If they want to come visit, they will. And my most recent family member that passed last year, he showed up just the day after. And it was amazing, and it was so unmistakable. It was very personal, but I just never thought I would ever have that type of interaction with someone from my own life. So that was it gave me great comfort on both ends.
Oh, that's awesome. That's powerful, man. That is, I mean, for lack of a better term, it's powerful. I mean, comforting.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Mike.
That transition period, it's important for who is passing over, and it's also maybe a transition period for us that are still living. That separation, and it's very important.
Very important.
And to your point, Mike, I mentioned this a lot in a lot of my lectures lately. I do a lecture about time where I'm looking at how we perceive things and do things. I don't feel like we give each other enough time for grieving. Like somebody dies in your family and they go to the HR manual and go, how close were you to them? What was the relation? Oh, you get 3 days, you get 5 days.
Right. Yeah.
That's not the way it should be. We do need to move forward. Our souls need to continue this human experience, but we need to grieve in our own time so that we can move on the way we should, and never forget those that went before us, but move on in a peaceful and loving way with great memories.
Right.
I appreciate that, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you, and I hope you guys having a very nice Thanksgiving and a nice holiday season.
You too.
And you too.
And I hope you feel better, man.
Yeah, I'll work on it.
Mike.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Dustin.
All right, God bless you guys. See you on the road.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Hey, Mike.
That was awesome.
That was awesome, as usual.
Always a great guy.
Always a great guy. Now I need you to hold on for 2 seconds, Mike. So hold on, boys and girls. That was awesome. We just had a blast talking with Mr. Dustin Pari. Technically the 4th time, but the first time on the Paranomaly Zone. Until next time, Mike, what do they have to do?
Peace out.